Good morning, everybody. Welcome to London Writers 2, the sequel to London Writers 1, with a bigger budget. This one was in development for a very long time because you just wanted to get it right. You know, the sequels are always so you disappoint the audience, the fan. You don't want to alienate the fan base that's been established, but you want to draw in new people. Am I right? So
they're more practical effects, less CG.
Exactly. And as you can see, our cast has been replaced by younger, far more attractive actors. This test audience is...
Your eyes checked.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming. It's deeply early in the morning, at least for me. I don't know what you guys, I complained about this yesterday. And this is no knock to Words Fest. Words Fest is fantastic. Tom's in the audience judging me, but Words Fest is fantastic. But we're writers, and this is very early. I don't know what you guys. Do you guys get up this early in the morning normally? No?
I do.
You do?
Yeah, I do. I'm sad to say, but I really do.
Sile does. Jennifer?
I have a standard day job, so.
You do, yeah.
Yep.
Me too. I have a standard day job too, but
Well, you have a day job. I don't know if it's standard.
it's not standard. It's a very atypical day job. But I am grumpy for the first 2 hours of every day, and I feel like it's my right as a bookseller to be absolutely irritating to be around for the first 2 hours. But I won't do that today. I'm not irritated today. I'm not at my job. I'm with you folks, and thank you so much. This is a great group. Thank you so much for coming. Let's introduce you to our panel. We have David, we have Sile, Misha, and Jennifer, and this is London Writers Today too. So what we're going to do today is chat with these fine folks about their writing, and also I'm shamelessly going to use the theme of this year's WordFest, Reimagining Regionalism, to dig into London, Ontario, which is a subject that interests me a lot. London, Ontario, what is it? Why do we stay when there are so many other cities, potentially better cities to live in? And how might it, or not, fairly, influence our writing, influence the writing that you do? That's a fair set of questions, all right? And it all doesn't have to be positive, because Lord knows it's very difficult to do sometimes when you live in a city. You can be negative about London, Ontario. Certainly I am from time to time. So if you have some nasty things to say about the city, you're tired of seeing the rhino up front, which I'm not, and it's a lovely rhino, Tom Better, he's fantastic. Or, Flex Street. No, actually, we won't talk about Flex Street. Actually, what we should do, this isn't my panel, this is my panel. What we should do is talk about daylight savings time, because has that thrown everybody off right now?
Oh,
Yeah,
It made me very happy this morning.
very happy? Yeah, that's right. It's true, me too, actually. Me too. Vanessa came in this morning, she's like, I got some good news and I got some bad news. The bad news is it's 8 o'clock, but the good news is it's actually 9 o'clock. So we're going to start with David, and we're going to go down the panel. And David, if you could just give us, please, a quick introduction, who you are, what you write, and let's start with that. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Okay, so my name is David Barrick, and I write poetry and prose and songs, and I teach at Western University creative writing and composition. I've lived in London for a long time.
And you're involved with Poetry London.
Oh yes, that's right. I'm also a co-director of the Poetry London reading series.
Yeah, and you have books. You recently published a book.
Yeah, actually, my first chapbook, Incubation Chamber, published by Instructor Press. I'm really excited about it. So I'll probably read some things from.
Awesome. Sile, tell us about yourself.
My name is Sile Englert, and I'm a poet and fiction writer and an artist. I work in multiple things, everything from quilting to tattoo design, whatever strikes my fancy at the time. I'm also on the board of Poetry London, and I have a new chapbook out with Baseline Press called Threadbare, which I don't have with me, but it is available upstairs. And I'm actually going to be reading fiction today.
Excellent. Misha.
My name is Misha Bower, and I write short stories. I put out a book called Music for Uninvited Guests in 2012. And I also write songs, put out a record in May. And fiction-wise, I've only written short stories, but I'm currently working on some longer form stuff, which I'm excited about and intimidated by, because it's a new thing. And I've been starting to write some like creative non-fiction pieces, just sort of, one-offs for fellow artists, for example, or for different arts publications. And yeah, I think that's the writing in a nutshell. Yeah.
Good answer. And actually, I have a recent memory of you. There was an event at our bookstore,
Yes.
and you weren't there. You were playing in Blackfriars. You were doing a backyard concert in Blackfriars.
That's right, for the release,
For the release, right? Microphone.
The release, yeah, there you are. And I was walking home and crossing the Blackfriars Bridge, and I started to hear this strange ambient sound coming out of the trees and the houses. And I'm walking down the Thames River path, and the sound got a little louder. And I got to my front porch, and Vanessa was home. And I got to my front porch, and I realized, and I couldn't go because I was working, but I realized it was Misha's concert. Misha was singing. I think it was in Susan's backyard, is it? Yeah, Susan's backyard. And the music was just, floating over top of the Blackfriars trees. It was night, and it was absolutely gorgeous. And I called Vanessa out, and we had our boys, and they were in bed. So it's not like, we're not that bohemian that we just ditch our kids and go to a concert, right? We have laws that we live in, but we sat on our porch, like our own little porch, and listened to Misha play her music. It was absolutely gorgeous.
Oh, that's a beautiful image.
Yeah.
Actually, there was no release. It was just a Misha hallucination.
Yeah, exactly. None of it's true. I made up little stories about all of you.
Yeah, that's right.
Jennifer, please tell us about you.
Jennifer Wenn. My day job is as a systems analyst at, was London Life, now Canada Life. Writing-wise, I did a family and social history that took 40 years or so to do. There's a few copies out there. These days, I write poetry. My first chapbook is out, Song of Milestones, Harmonium Press. I have a few, there's some out there too. I'm a transgender woman, and that identity is central to who I am, and my writing enters directly, sometimes, not always. And in that connection, apart from writing, I also do a lot of speaking engagements in schools, churches, and second-year med students at Western, and a bunch of other places.
The first book you put out, it's been in our shop. It's quite a substantial book too. It's from adversity to accomplishment, right?
It is, yeah, that's correct. My grandfather was a Bernardo Boy child, and he was sent to Canada as an indentured servant at the age of 11 from an orphanage. He wasn't an orphan, but he was in an orphanage. It's very complicated. And it's about him, his story, but a whole lot of social history around it, and family history behind him, and social history and all that kind of stuff. And that's totally different than anything that I do nowadays.
Right. Excellent, thank you. So let's move on and talk about the theory of London, Ontario. What is it? And I should preface this, I should take the responsibility off your shoulders. We talked about this yesterday at London Writers 1, the inferior event, and we accomplished nothing. Nothing. When we talked about it, the mystery remained, and that was wonderful. It's better, I think, that the mystery remains than us solve the problem and all walk out here thinking that we've figured it out. However, talking about London, Ontario is fun and interesting. So let's do this. Let's sort of orbit around London, Ontario for a bit and how it influences what we do. So we'll start on this side, if that's okay.
Sure.
Yeah. So Jennifer, how long have you lived in London?
Since day one.
Day one.
So why am I here? Inertia.
You might be speaking for a lot of people in the audience.
I spent a year in England when my dad had a sabbatical in my grade 8 year, but other than that, I've just sort of been here. I drifted into university at Western and got a job, and never really wanted to go to Toronto. I'm like visiting Toronto, but I really didn't want to live in Toronto. My grandparents were from rural southwestern small town Ontario, and like visiting them, and didn't want to live there either. Really, didn't have enough.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just kind of stayed here. These days, would I shift somewhere else if I had a choice? Well, my job's here, and roots and house. Would I shift? Probably not. For me, there are many worse places for a trans person to be in the world.
Right.
Is this perfect? Lord, no. There's a lot of things that we face even here, but this is better than a lot of other places, and the support services are pretty good as far as, comparatively speaking goes.
How has the response been to the first book that you wrote?
The Song of Milestone?
No, from adversity to accomplishment.
Well, the response to that one, I didn't push it very far. That was self-published. This Song of Milestones isn't. That's Harmonia Press. But I self-published that. I distributed it to a bunch of family and some friends and that sort of thing. And there were a few copies that were sold here and there. There's one up in the library, Western, they took one. There's a local library down in Norwich, down there. I think people were impressed with there's lots of pictures and maps, and a lot of research and all that kind of stuff. I think people liked it from that perspective. These days I'm trying to turn it into an epic poem of sorts.
That's interesting. What's that like? How does that work?
Structurally, there's two streams. There's the history stream, and there's my search for the history stream, and they kind of intertwine back and forth. And it's coming out. I'm sort of staging my way through it. You have to really strip it down, find the essence, find what your focal point is for each particular section, and then adopt whatever writing technique seems reasonable for that particular section.
Mm-hmm. Misha, you've lived here, but you were born here, am I right?
Yeah, born and raised with, I lived in Toronto for a number of years, and then I moved to Moncton, New Brunswick, briefly.
Wow.
And then my reason for going there didn't work out. It was a relationship, obviously. And I'm not going to shroud that my reason for going there. Anyway, and when that didn't work out, I came back to London. And I've been here ever since. So that was probably in 2007 or so. And similar to Jennifer, I've got the job is here, the family is here, and so I feel very anchored here. I feel quite rooted here. And
anchored here or anchored here?
Angered?
Anchored.
I'm furious. I feel very rooted. I'll just use the word rooted to avoid any ambiguity.
Right.
And while I do have a really strong, beautiful community of family in Toronto that I really miss. But I feel it's a Greyhound bus ride away, it's a train ride away, and so and that's the only thing that would pull me to Toronto. Otherwise, I find it prohibitively expensive and a bit too big and a bit too busy for my liking. But London is a weird place for sure. I'm getting to know London more, despite the fact that I was born and raised here. I feel like it's only since I moved back here from, actually in the last handful of years that I've become a better citizen of London. I think for a while I kind of compartmentalized my London-Toronto relationship. Work and family were here, and friends and culture were in Toronto, because I go there for music, and I go there to work. Everything artistic was sort of in Toronto, and that's changed a lot. And I think that change is sort of reflected in how London is featured in some of my new work.
Okay.
One of the longer stories I'm working on is set in London, and so it's interesting to setting a story in the city in which you live is always an interesting opportunity to really think about the city that you live in, right? Really kind of linger on some of those observations. And so I'm thinking a lot about how London is a place where very oddly, beauty and abundance coexist with crisis and uncertainty, and that's such a weird vibe about this place, right? Some question mark. I mean, as you say, you solved nothing in the inferior panel yesterday.
Yeah.
I won't venture to define what London is in a macro sense. I think I know what it means to me, why I live here, why I stayed here.
Right.
But it's an odd place in its mixture of beauty and crisis.
How does that work in the new story that you're working on? What is the story like? If you're fine talking about
Oh,
it.
sure, yeah. Oh, the new story. So there's the central character is someone whose father has been, through various systems, the correctional system, someone who is struggling with addiction, someone who is, maddeningly unreliable, but she of course feels deep love for her dad, and so a lot of the story centers on that relationship. And so I think it's, the protagonist. This is probably a story where I'm putting in probably more of myself than I ever have, and so I think it's that character is kind of both worlds, right? You can be sort of the world where you have a roof over your head, you're controlling your thermostat, you have all the creature comforts of home, you're buying $4 lattes, you're of that world, right? But you're also of the world where you are going to a medical detox center, you're going and fetching your dad, you're finding him in squalor, you are going and watching the baseball games for the duration that he's at the halfway house, and you're having conversations with, former convicts who are covered in blue-green tattoos, and so I think that's how that mixture is being explored, or how I'm exploring that mixture in the story so far. Did that make sense?
Oh no, with in the research that Vanessa did for her book, she talked to a lot of folks in law enforcement industry, is that fair? Vocation? Anyway, she talked to a lot of cops, and she learned a lot about the London, Ontario that folks don't know anything about.
Yeah.
Like the London, Ontario that intentionally doesn't make it to the London Free Press because that's all the London Free Press would be about. Not that it shouldn't be, I suppose, that argument can be made, but that folks just don't want to know about this side of London, Ontario,
Yeah.
and it really is 50% of the city.
Yeah.
Like an entire underbelly, and especially in the rural areas, so the counties and so on, like just a sort of shadow London that lives underneath the London that most normal folks walk around in and get their lattes and so forth.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Are you pleased with that? Are you pleased with adopting London, Ontario as a subject? Was that an easy thing to do, or?
Yeah, it's part of this weird. It's part of this weird realization that I'm having at this stage of my writing career, which is like, I'll be like stuck on something, like stuck on how a character's feeling or how a character's responding, and then this is gonna sound so stupid, but it's like I would put as a placeholder like my own feeling about it, and then I think just use more of yourself, and I'm not saying I haven't used more of I've shied away from, in some way the stuff I've written is to varying degrees a reflection of experience, direct and indirect, right? That patchwork of experience. But with this story, I'm just realizing how many maybe gates are still there between my experience and the writing, and so it's becoming easier as it just occurs to me to draw on my own experience, both like in the present and also growing up with social worker parents who were bringing home their crushing caseloads. They both worked in the system, right?
Yeah.
And so just draw on that. It's okay. It's okay to put that into the work, and that's what will probably make it more compelling and interesting for me too. So I am enjoying that process for sure. Yeah.
Excellent. Sile, you how long have you lived in London, Ontario?
I'm not from London originally. I've been here for about 8 years.
Right.
So I adopted London as home, or else it adopted me. I don't know. Yeah, I moved around a lot. Once I moved out of the home I grew up in with my parents, I moved every year or two. I think this is probably the 14th house I've lived in since I was 17. So this is the longest I've been anywhere. And the nice thing is, you know, I came for love. Like Misha tried to go out east, right? But it worked out a lot better for me. And so
I'm so happy for you.
I think that because I didn't grow up here, you know, I don't know as much about London. And I have a little bit of a bias because I found home here, I found a family here, I found a community here. So I have only had these few years of experience, and they've been predominantly good. So for all of its faults, I probably have a bit of a bias. And I think that sense of home is something that shows up in my work, the unsettled feeling, the emotional issues with not being able to find it, and home as a physical place and home as an emotional thing. That's something that tends to come up a lot. And I think that's come from finally understanding what that feeling means, that it's not always just a place, it's people, it's, yeah.
What's that been like? If I remember, I mean, last time I heard you read, I think it was at our shop, am I right? And there was, I mean, you have a lot of house metaphors in your work too, right? Windows, doors, rooms, things like that. Is that new? Is that sort of a new thing, or has that always been there, stuff that the metaphor set that you've worked with?
I think it's always come up for me from time to time. I remember writing a really bad novella years ago about a house that was sort of alive and had feelings and tried to make its presence known to the people who lived inside it. So I think that's something that's always been there. But now I feel like I'm on the other side of it, because now I know what it's like to feel like I'm at home. So I can look at it from having one and from not having one.
Has that change been seen in your writing? Like, is it sort of was it sort of searching for that earlier on, and now it's sort of, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, like warm to that idea?
I don't know if it's changed much, or I just understand it differently, because I still tend to come at it from the darker, weirder angles. So.
Right. Tell us about the darker, weirder London. Tell us about sort of your experiences in the city. Like, what has it been like as a writer? As a serious writer, to come to the town and to sort of discover this place and the weirdo writers that live in it, and you know, some of which are in this audience. Hello, Claire, Tom, again, how are you guys?
Not that we're naming names.
But not to name names, Tom. But what has that been like to sort of become a part of that community?
I think it starts in the neighborhood I lived in, because we live in Old East, and being in that place over the years, we've been there about 6 years now, we've discovered that that's a very central place for artists and poets and musicians. They're all over the place. There's other people on our street, and so being surrounded by people who are artistic and inspiring and creative and weird in all the best ways, you know, that's been wonderful. And I think the history of things is really important to me and to my writing. And so historic buildings, historic places, just being able to wander and see things that feel old, and to be around other people who appreciate it. Yeah, all of those things I think have been a really positive influence and give me a lot of fodder for the weird stuff too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There's this funny, like, it is a difficult town to escape, am I right? Like, once you're here, it's just sort of like, it's this Black Lodge, you know? And in fact, I was thinking about this when I was sitting down, this furniture set up here looks like the Black Lodge. I don't know if there's anybody Twin Peaks fans out there, but this is straight from the Black Lodge. So welcome, and you'll never escape, according to the folklore. But yeah, there's a weird magnetism here. What was it, Buckminster Fuller came to Western at one point and did a talk about London, Ontario. And he sort of, I'm paraphrasing, of course, to my terrible paraphrasing, but it was sort of like a snow globe. It was like, what was it? It was too close to fly, too far to drive. And and so you're here, and you're kind of stuck here. I mean, like, how many, so I'm just jumping off, but how many going away parties have you been to for friends of yours? And then how many welcome back parties have you been to a couple of years later?
No one ever really leaves. They This
Right.
is temporary.
Yeah, I think so. I think, you can speak. I mean, I left and then I came back, and Misha, you took off, and you came back, and here we find ourselves in in London, and again chatting about London, Ontario. That's interesting. I like that. Very much. David, you were born here, am I right?
That's right.
Yeah.
I was born here in the Old South before it was cool. And raised in the Old South, and I moved to Montreal for 4 years to do graduate work. And then I came back here for all the good reasons, family, getting married, having a job. And what I think is, and you talk about Twin Peaks, it's like the Jaude ring, right? That sends you back to the Black Lodge, and it's like
Right.
It's like you're trying to avoid it, but then it happens.
Someone put that ring on at a bar and then punched you out, and you wake up in London, Ontario.
Yes. But what I think is really interesting about, and I think this goes for many different small towns or mid-sized towns that people are born in. When you're sort of born there and raised there, sometimes what happens is that really maybe seemingly insignificant things and places to outsiders have almost this mythic quality in your own imagination. I think about the bike paths, for instance, in London, and memories of those in the park systems, and even the neighborhoods, buildings that are not necessarily, well, some of them are kind of weird and evolving. We had a home that, our house, we used to have a doppelganger house, keeping with the
Twin Peaks theme, yeah.
But then the people just rebuilt it entirely. So now we have the only house in our neighborhood that's like that house. And so it seems like there's this weird evolution of buildings being replaced, sometimes sadly, but sometimes houses just evolving. And I think that is interesting to see, especially when you have a blueprint in your mind of how the city used to be. Just still being here, there's something, there's a strong pull, definitely.
I read a book on Ontario architecture once, and it was, it said there isn't necessarily such a thing, as Ontario architecture. I mean, there are things that we've come up with, and there are, like you go to Guelph, and there's a particular kind of building. You come to London, there's a particular kind of brick, for example. Stan Draken's in the audience, Brick Magazine, of course, named after London Brick. But the thing this writer said is that, the one thing that's common about Ontario architecture is that we just build onto things. So there's the house, and we're like, oh, we need another room, so let's just smash this wall out and build a room there. And then, oh, we need another floor, so we'll just build a half floor on top of this. And none of it is none of it fits together. And when you take apart a heritage home, it's this strange influence of styles over the centuries, where everyone just sort of jack of all trades did onto it. And that's why you have these weird houses with things sticking out here. It's like the mystery house, like some roadside attraction house, where you put the penny on the ground and it mysteriously rolls across uphill or something like that. That seems to be London, Ontario architecture, according to this writer.
Oh, that's true. Walking through heritage homes, there will be these moments where you see these weird features and you're like, what is that? Why is that there?
Right.
Whose idea was that?
Uncle Jack's. Yeah. It was Uncle Jack's idea. And he just went out and got the materials and decided to do it one day. Our house has 3 different foundations in the basement. And it's so there's the original foundation made of God knows bones. And then there's a dirt foundation that's slowly sinking into the ground, into the earth, which is, do with that what you will, writers. And then they built an even heavier foundation on top of it. And then, if you look through the crawl spaces, there's nobody gets rid of anything. I think that's the point. Nobody gets rid of anything in London. We sort of built up this weird, catalog of, I could go on. But anyway, in between the walls, there's 5 different eras of interior decorating, including this old chandelier between the false ceiling and the actual ceiling of our house, but just sort of hanging out there. haunting the mid space between the living room and the attic.
Top two.
Do you relate to that?
I strongly relate to that.
I relate.
So internally,
Green light.
Identify with the chandelier.
And that's it. That's why we feel weird when the wind kicks up. And it's, some people say that their joints ache, when the barometer pressure changes. It's us, it's just our chandelier is sort of just just shaking in the wind, am I right? And it's somewhere in our brain.
doors that close just fine one day, and then you can't get them to the latch to catch the next day.
Close the next day. And I mean, James Rainey talked about this too. Or who was it? Somebody talked about this, about haunting ghosts in the area, sort of the strange spectral history, so that ineffable thing that you can't really touch or feel, but yeah, it influences you somehow. Yeah. How does that figure into your writing?
I think that my experiences tend to be very heavily assimilated with my writing, and it tends to be an internal world that is processed and made concrete through the imagination. And I find that even when settings are not explicitly identifiable with locations in, say, London, Ontario, I do find that in my imagination they are those places, just transformed.
Right. So, speaking of writing, you have all brought stuff to read, and let's hear it. The next panel is my wife, actually, and if we don't get done, by the time she comes in, she's going to kick us all out. So let's start with you, David. You tell us what you're going to read, and then please share it.
Okay, do I have 6 minutes, or 5 minutes, or what would be?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, we're good. Yeah. Let's screw it. Vanessa can wait. No, it's fine. Vanessa can wait. She's fine.
So first I'm going to read maybe 3 poems from my chapbook, Incubation Chamber. I forgot to mention as well that I do have copies if anyone is interested in picking it up, so let me know. These are poems that are really, the thematic through line is an intersection of the imagination and anxiety as manifested in these sort of dream logic narratives. So I'll just jump right in. This is recurrent dream number 51. Yellow tornado sky sets its countdown clock in the upper right constellation. We keep playing beach frisbee, ankles silt bogged. Just 4 more throws. The ocean is a blue whale gone belly up, trembling body of appetite, but a conch drifts past, murmuring, sheep may safely graze. Major keys echo curling into a cochlear, slumbering there. Air pressure shifts, the rumble of distant funnel clouds ripping up the farm where our parents sent all our old dogs. We keep flicking frisbees as the tides lick and rise. There's time. This one, actually I haven't read this one before. It's set in Niagara Falls. It's called Recurrent Dream number 24. Rides 2 for $1, shouts a sweaty huckster, grabbing at the shoulders of passing slot machines, wax replica presidents, sepia 1940s film stars. No one seems to care what anyone does around here. Barrel riders shoot at falls, plunge hundreds of meters to explode against the black foam basin. Horseshoe cackles and cowboy hats all that remain. I lean over the main drag's black railings, watch the churning eye of Niagara. The maid of the mist burns, but no one's putting it out. Want to be the hero, fella? Barrel up and give it a try. We got guys here cutting gills 2 for $1. I pull out my pocket magnets for coins, but magnets pour down instead. Thousands of polarized Lucky Charms emptying from my pants and jacket, until I'm just eyes rising through the mist, past the tallest man in the world, past blinking Plinko board facades and crowds of peep show binoculars. I guess no one's gonna save it, they all say. The maid of the mist burns on, beneath the tantrum deluge, beneath my missing feet. Just one more short one from the Incubation Chamber called Proportional, which is a fall poem. It feels very fall-like to me. A foxhole was once a rabbit hole before the fox showed up. Tiny bones littered the den floor, gore picked clean, architecture too small to support anything. Fox curls up and rests, eyes trained on the white hole of daylight.
Yeah.
This one, I also like writing prose poems, or I have been enjoying them more recently, because I like having a narrative dimension to my poetry. I want to read this one. It just got my readers, or a contributor's copy. Prairie Fire, which is published. This one, I want to read it for you because it was inspired by something that happened on Dundas Street. So many things that happened on Dundas Street involving pizza and dancing. This poem is called Balance. Waiting downtown for the bus, I saw a man dancing with 2 slices of pizza, one in each hand. It was raining, but he wasn't trying to get out of it. He squinted, danced harder as if that was his job. Furious groove and shake, nothing ballroom about it. The pizza was crushed. He kept biting at the tips, switching slices. I tilted my umbrella to keep an eye on him. His feet crept forward just inches at a time. His body so soaked that plaid boxers showed through white jogging pants. But he kept dancing, stringy hair plastered to his skull like an eggplant cap. People moved past as if 2 existential planes fused but refused to commingle. Suitcases, fedoras, Hugo Boss, slickers, he boogied and slipped through, a shabby apparition slam dancing in thin air. He finished his pizza before my bus came, having traveled only a few yards, slumping in a shop stoop, hands cupped, palm up. I wanted to give him more pizza. I wanted to pay him money. Pizza was his money. I weighed these thoughts until the bus drove up and blocked my sight, doors hissing. A brief gravitational tug as I lifted my feet and shook the collapsed umbrella. And just one more, this is a brand new one about the climate crisis. It's called Storybook. The sky is falling, and so am I. We've been falling together for a long time now. Other things are falling too. A potted fern, a lawnmower, a cow, a newlywed couple. Everyone seems pretty calm about it, as if we've fully committed to where we're going. The sky sets the tone with nimbi whiffling along our limbs, a refreshing turbulence. The newlyweds hold hands, their formal attire rippling like parachutes, and the lawnmower whirs. Really, it's as if we're all just floating in midair. We could live here. I close my eyes, making my house appear. I open the door, inviting the newlyweds in for a continental breakfast. I flip on the coffee maker, snap a linen over the kitchen table, set the fern on the windowsill. Outside, the cow is still falling, spinning end over end, losing her milk, mooing softly, the storybook sound. Thanks.
Thank you, David. Thank you. Sile, what have you brought for us?
So I usually read poetry lately in public, so I've brought a piece of a short story today. Just the first section, and if you're interested and want to hear the rest or read the rest, it'll be in an upcoming issue of Room magazine. This is called The Last Place You Look. I'm crouching just outside a line of yellow caution tape. One hand stays pressed into the dirt to keep me upright. My body wants to falter, give me to gravity, and leave me quivering on the ground in front of all these police officers. I'm depending on this one last thing, this hand with its feeble fingers, to hold on a little longer. The caution tape is a picture frame with a still life painting inside. This is the place where my son Adam hid when he ran away from me. As if to set the mood, an autumn sunset leaches candied color into the landscape. It seeps through slats between the bleachers, slices of pinkish light dividing the space underneath into light and dark. At the county fairgrounds, the bleachers are one of the few structures that don't get folded up and carted off once the music stops. No one would have noticed Adam underneath, in the far corner there. He wouldn't have had to keep very quiet under the noise of crowds and machines, the occasional punctuation of a crowing rooster or a donkey's bray, until the fair closed up like the castles in his medieval pop-up book. When Adam was little, it used to frighten him the way something so solid and complex could just collapse in on itself. He would ask me over and over where the castle went, until I opened the book again to show him that it still existed. It's all right, Adam. The castle's still there. It's only hiding. 3 days ago, the first time Adam ever said, "I hate you." The first time I said, "Well, I don't like you very much right now either." I sent him to his room for the night. The first time he packed his own backpack and snuck out of the house. There it is, in the hollow under the bleachers, a blue robot with its body unzipped, lying half open on the ground. Beside the backpack, Adam's frog blanket is stirred into a green spiral, a tiny frozen hurricane. The ghost shape of his body is the eye, as though he's left the outline of himself behind. Adam's snack bag is open and deflated near the blanket. There are empty apple juice boxes squeezed into hourglass shapes by his stubborn fingers. The love-worn, pink-haired doll he's had since he was a few months old is on her side with her limbs at odd angles. Dee Dee. I think we called her Daisy at first, until Adam took the name in his new mouth and tried to bend his clumsy lips and tongue around it. When Adam was 2, he started to bite. He did it out of frustration if I took the TV remote or my phone away from him. When I said no, bright red baby shark bites fading to purple along my arms, on the inside of my calf. When he finally drew blood, I'd had enough, and I bit him back. Not hard enough to leave a mark, just the sensation of teeth on his skin to accompany the words, "See, Adam, when you do that, it hurts." Adam had howled his protest inches from my face, the shock of discovering that his actions had consequences. No, it doesn't. Each word, its own sentence. It doesn't hurt you, Mummy. I look at each of the objects under the bleachers for minutes I can't measure. There are voices, bodies humming and shuffling nearby, but it's all just a backdrop. The objects are what's important, the pieces of Adam. All around them, his footprints are still pressed into the dirt. There are whispered clues, an imprinted pattern of ripples left by the size 13 shoes I described carefully to the police. The temperature has been falling a little more each night. I can almost see my little boy huddled there, determined, shivering in his t-shirt, his old frog blanket too worn to be any kind of protection against the cold. I wonder if there hadn't been enough room in his backpack for his coat once he'd packed snacks and his favorite possessions. Adam had made a difficult choice between warmth and comfort. He left his coat still clinging to a hook in the closet at home. The way he hated to be alone in the dark, but hated being told no even more. So he chose. The constable who brought me here said I can look as long as I don't touch anything, as if the scene might give me some idea where Adam is now, why he left all of his things when he'd been so quick to take them from home. Dee Dee looks lonely, abandoned among the empty juice boxes, cardboard and foil packages, bits of ash and cigarette butts strewn among half-crushed French fry containers, all dropped by people sitting above. The doll's pale cotton face is bruised with a smear of dirt, and all I can think about is every time I told Adam to put his garbage in the garbage can when he was done with it. You can't just leave things lying around, Adam. You have to take care of your space. I don't know if I say it out loud. Mrs. Anson, are these the things Adam took with him? Is that his backpack? I'm not sure how long the constable has been speaking, although the forced patience in her voice indicates that she'd asked her questions more than once. She holds my right arm and helps me to my feet. Ms. Anson, I'm not a Mrs. Right, Ms. Anson, sorry. I just need to confirm for me that these are Adam's belongings, taken from your house on Friday night. I should look at her, but I'm afraid the details of her face will fossilize in my memory. If I ever notice her in a crowd, I don't want to recognize her. Yes, these are Adam's. I push forward, my belly scraping the plastic tape with a hissing sound. I want to curl up in Adam's blanket, inside the shape of him, touch the dirt where his footprints are. The constable's hand is still on my arm, gently restraining. I want to press Dee Dee tight to my mouth and nose, breathing in the smell of my boy. No, I'm sorry, you can't touch any of it right now. I know this is incredibly difficult. We don't know exactly what's happened to Adam yet, so forensics needs to go over everything. I'll get Constable Ortega to drive you back home. It's good to have someone at the house, just in case. We'll let you know as soon as we know anything else. Get some rest, Mrs. Anson. I don't correct her. Constable Ortega is kindly silent as he guides the car out of the parking lot, down the meandering lane and away from the fairgrounds. Gravel crunches and pops under the tires. It sounds like something alive, like little cracking bones giving in to the weight of the car and our bodies. I sit twisted away from him in the seat, looking back at the empty field still littered with trash, a few lonely buildings shrinking into the gloaming. Beyond the remains of the fair is the river, a moving scar bordering the grounds and splitting the town in two. To the west, the water reflects the last particles of pinkish light from the sky. To the east, it's already nearly black. The river is a long mouth, curved in a mocking smile. Even in the distance, it looks wide enough to swallow almost anything.
Thank you. Misha.
I don't have to do anything now, do I, guys? I just get to be read to, right? I'm going to read one from my collection called Leading Man. Even though it's a bit of an outlier, it's kind of, it's probably the most like observational piece in here and kind of mean. Every time I read this one, I want to be like what was that, Grosse Point Blank, and John Cusack is the hitman, and he's always like, it's not me, it's not me. But I did bring copies of this book today, along with postcards of the record. So I'll have those bundled together if anyone is interested. This is Leading Man. The wagon is smashed. The driver is dead. We are lost in the woods. We panic. We argue, all except for one man. He was riding up top with the driver, no luggage, strikingly silent. He turns away from us and starts walking. We follow him unquestioningly into the cold, dark woods. We have an unspoken and unanimous confidence in him. We don't question what he's doing. We assume there's something noble motivating his behavior. We have faith in his accountability to a superior logic or morality. There have always been laws that go far enough to balance the whole, but not far enough to contain certain individuals. The sheriff who ravages the town, the despot who plays God. We despise these characters for trying to paint the town in the color of their evil. But the leading man, who also paints the town in his own way, seems to capture only our positive ideals. He has our complete confidence. He has our forgiveness in advance for everything he does, and we benefit from this. But it's unfortunate for the leading man himself, who doesn't have anyone in his life who can do for him what he does for us. He can never believe in his own virtue the way other people believe in it, or feel safe under his own protection the way he makes other people feel safe. The reason no one can fuck with him is because he is immune to his own aura. When our hero stares into the river in private, all he sees looking back at him is a villain. doesn't know that I know that about him, but I do. I see a flash of weakness when he takes out the photograph, standing away from the group with his feet in the water. I don't know what he's looking at, but I know what it means to him. I know the look on a man's face when something bigger than his chest comes alive inside his heart. He can hardly contain the feeling. It confounds him how a loss can take up so much room, yet leave one feeling so empty. I know that look because I'm helpless against it. I'm captivated by the way my hero breaks. I love the feeling of my faith in him, but part of me wants to know that he can be brought low, restrained. The slim chance he could get lost in the woods suggests the equally slim chance that I could find my way out without him. It is in these rare, quiet moments of vulnerability where I can see him, but he can't see me, that I feel closest to my hero. Through the trees, I watch him as he stumbles into asymmetry, his face so perfectly human that if I could reach out and touch it, it would feel like the softest skin in the world. So soft and so real that just the touch of it would drive me crazy. Thank you.
Jennifer?
I'll do a couple, just about out of time here. I have an affinity for birds and enjoy watching in my yard and tracking them through the winter for feeder watch. And so unsurprisingly, they often figure into my poetry. In this connection, one of the items I'm working on is a cycle of brief pieces called avian odes, each one dedicated to a particular species or individual. And this one is called My Grackle. Noisy and messy, the received wisdom, labeled common, deemed tuneless and devoid of allure. But as your flock outmuscles flashier and more melodious competition, behold beauty in the charcoal body and lustrous midnight blue head. Hearken to the spiky language. But in this ebony clamoring mob, you are an anachronism, an individual in a crowd, with your own mark of Cain, a long white feather bifurcating your tail. A mutant, some would cry, with overtones of sci-fi disdain, an abnormality, contrary to nature's grand design. To me, something else, an artistic variant painted with a different brush, a kindred spirit on the margins, fighting to fit in, claim your place. Each thaw, I looked for you, proudly recording for feeder watch your distinguished difference, until came that inevitable spring, the returning host now monotonously uniform, no flash of enlivening divergence. But the collective soul remembers, and I will watch and wait. May the kinship manifest again. As I mentioned, I am a transgender woman, and that identity enters into my poetry, sometimes indirectly, sometimes not at all, like my Bernardo Boy project, sometimes indirectly like that preceding piece, and sometimes very directly, as in this next one. And it comes from the Song of Milestones, the chapbook that's out by Harmonia Press. I have a few, and they're available at the book fair. It's a psychological and spiritual tour of my gender journey as a transgender woman, and is split into a prelude and 10 further sections. The title and overall structure were inspired by Walt Whitman's glorious Song of Myself. I've had the privilege of presenting it in its entirety a few times, and I will again this Wednesday, November 6th, 7 at Calvary United. So come out Wednesday night if you can. It's accompanied by slide and music. I'll do one section today, obviously. Each part has at least one major literary touchstone as a foundational referent, and the helper for this particular segment is Shakespeare's The Tempest. This milestone, subtitled The Past as Prologue, is a meditation on the life-changing switch after more than 5 decades of living in male mode to a full-time female presentation. Like a germinated flower pushing through soil and detritus, seeking light, seeking to join Garden's panoply. I yearn for revelation, for acceptance, celebration, for joining, but with my own special colors, long, dormant, feminine, battling boundaries, frustrated by custom suffocating necessities, oft required male shell's veneer increasingly thin. At intervals, the inner bloom unveiled, only to find her beauty lost on some, loving labor over finery all for naught, sinking under the dead weight of macho pronouns, shrinking from cruelties careless and intentional, subtle and vicious. But oh, those glorious times when someone glimpsed the fragile rose, nurtured the delicate spirit with simple nourishment. She, her, ma'am, times that shielded, times that elicited a gentle yet destined flourishing. And inexorably an inevitability took hold. The bard spoke true, the past is indeed prologue, all before leads to the defining moment, but here was enjoined not a murder on a tempest-tossed island, but a torch passing, male persona honored, but fading inward, seeking rest and integration, true identity's unquenchable flame, transcending imposed role, transcending body, transcending all. Thus, an era's end, masculine name and dress forever in the past, a turning of the tide mourned, yes, but embraced, in trepidation and hope and faith and surrender, the scared, confused little girl of so long ago, released, a caged bird at last stretching her wings, finally, wondrously, a woman claiming her time to be borne aloft, proud and free. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Quickly, before the throng of true crime fans come in and stampede us out of the room, or though some of you should stay, of course. Hey, you should stay for the next panel. My wife's on it, and you got good seats. But on behalf of the panel of our writers today, I want to say thank you to Words Fest, and thank you all for coming. Hopefully, we'll see you around the festival. Take care. Yeah, one last round of applause.
One thing I was going to say, we have a workshop right now of